Hare Krishna everyone, welcome back to the reading of Dialectic, Spiritualism, Vedic View on Western Philosophy by His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. This book is presently published as Beyond Illusion and Doubt, and we are Shravanam Diaries podcast. I'm your host Sulalita Devidasi, and we are continuing to read chapter number 6 entitled Thomas Aquinas. So, disciple. Aquinas believed that the author of sacred scripture can be only God himself, who can not only, quote, adjust words to their meaning, which even man can do, but also adjust things in themselves, unquote. Also, scriptures are not restricted to one meaning. In this, Aquinas seems to differ from the official Catholic doctrine, which admits only the Pope's interpretation. For him, the scriptures may contain many meanings according to our degree of realization. Srila Prabhupada. The meaning is one, but if we are not realized, we may interpret many meanings. We present the Bhagavad Gita as it is, without interpretation or motive. We cannot change the words of God. Unfortunately, many interpreters of scripture have spoiled the God consciousness of society. For example, it is stated in both the Bible and the Bhagavad Gita that God created the universe, and that is a fact. One may conjecture that God created the universe out of some chunk or whatever, but we should not interpret scripture in this way. In the Gita we find that Lord Krishna states, Aham sarvasya prabhavo mattah sarvam pravartate. Quote, I am the source of all spiritual and material worlds. Everything emanates from me. Unquote, Bhagavad Gita 10.8. If it is a fact that everything is an emanation of God's energy, why should we accept a second meaning or interpretation? What is the possible second meaning? Disciple. Well, in the Bible it is stated that after creating the universe, God walked through paradise in the afternoon. Aquinas would consider this to have an interior or metaphorical meaning. Srila Prabhupada. If God can create, he can also walk, speak, touch, and see. If God is a person, why is a second meaning necessary? What could it possibly be? Disciple. Impersonal speculation. Srila Prabhupada. If God is the creator of all things, he must be a person. Things appear to come from secondary causes, but actually everything is created by the Supreme Creator. Disciple. Aquinas seems to have encouraged individual interpretation. He writes, quote, It belongs to the dignity of divine scripture to contain many meanings in one text, so that it may be appropriate to the various understandings of men, for each man to marvel at the fact that he can find the truth that he has conceived in his own mind expressed in divine scripture. Unquote. Srila Prabhupada. No. No. If one's mind is perfect, he may give a meaning. But according to our conviction, if one is perfect, why should he try to change the words of God? And if one is imperfect, what is the value of his change? If one is perfect, why should he change the words of God? If one is imperfect, what is the value of his change? Disciple, Aquinas doesn't say change. Srila Prabhupada, interpretation means change. If man is perfect, how can he change the words of God? If the words can be changed, they are not perfect. If the words can be changed, they are not perfect. So therefore, there will be doubt whether the words are spoken by God or by an imperfect person. Disciple, the many different Protestant faiths resulted from such individual interpretation. It's surprising to find this viewpoint in Aquinas. Srila Prabhupada, as soon as you interpret or change the scripture loses its authority. Wow. Scripture loses its authority. Then another man will come and interpret things in his own way. Another will come, and then another, and in this way the original purport of the scripture is lost. Disciple, Aquinas believed that it is not possible to see God in this life. He writes, quote, God cannot be seen in his essence by one who is merely man, except he be separated from this mortal life. The divine essence cannot be known through the nature of material things. Srila Prabhupada, what does he mean by divine essence? For us, God's divine essence is personal. When one cannot conceive of the personality of Godhead, he sees the impersonal feature everywhere. When one advances further, he sees God as the Paramatma within his heart. That is the result of yoga meditation. Finally, if one is truly advanced, he can see God face to face. When Krishna came, people saw him face to face. Christians accept Christ as the Son of God, and when he came, people saw him face to face. Does Aquinas think that Christ is not the divine essence of God? Disciple, for a Christian, Christ must be the divine essence. Srila Prabhupada, and didn't many people see him? Then how can Aquinas say that God cannot be seen? Disciple, it's difficult to say whether Aquinas is basically impersonalist or personalist. Srila Prabhupada, that means he is speculating. Disciple, he writes about the personal feature in this way, quote, because God's nature has all perfection, and thus every kind of perfection should be attributed to him, it is fitting to use the word person to speak of God. Yet, when used of God, it is not used exactly as it is of creatures, but in a higher sense. Certainly, the dignity of divine nature surpasses every nature, and thus it is entirely suitable to speak of God as a person. Unquote. Aquinas is no more specific than this. Srila Prabhupada, Christ is accepted as the Son of God, and if the Son can be seen, why can't the Father be seen? If Christ is the Son of God. Who is God? In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Aham sarvasya prabhava. Quote, everything is emanating from me. Unquote. Christ says that he is the Son of God, and this means that he emanates from God. Just as he has his personality, God also has his personality. Therefore, we refer to Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Disciple. Concerning God's names, Aquinas writes, quote, yet since God is simple and subsisting, we attribute to him simple and abstract names to signify his simplicity, and concrete names to signify his subsistence and perfection, although both these kinds of names fail to express his mode of being, because our intellect does not know him in this life as he is. Unquote. Srila Prabhupada. One of God's attributes is being. Similarly, one of his attributes is attraction. God attracts everything. The word Krishna means all attractive. What then is wrong with addressing God as Krishna? Because Krishna is the enjoyer of Radharani, his name is Radhika Ramana. Because he exists, he is called the Supreme Being. In one sense, God has no name, but in another sense, he has millions of names according to his activities and attributes. Disciple. Aquinas maintains that although the names apply to God to signify one reality, they are not synonymous because they signify that reality under diverse aspects. Srila Prabhupada. God's names are there because he has different features and activities. Disciple. But Aquinas asserts that no name belongs to God in the same sense that it belongs to creatures. Srila Prabhupada. The names of creatures are also derived from God. For instance, God appeared as the boar incarnation, and therefore a devotee may be called Varaha Dasa, which means servant of God in his boar incarnation. This name is not created, it refers to the activities of God. Disciple. Aquinas believed that names of God that imply relation to creatures are predicated of God temporarily. He writes, though God is prior to the creature, still, because the signification of Lord includes the idea of a servant and vice versa, these two relative terms, Lord and servant, are simultaneous by nature. Hence, God was not Lord until he had a creature subject to himself. Thus, names which import relation to creatures are applied to God temporarily and not from eternity, since God is outside the whole order of creation. Unquote. Srila Prabhupada. God is always existing as the Lord, and his servants are existing everlastingly with him. How can he be the Lord without a servant? How can it be that God had no servants? Disciple. Well, the contention is that creatures were created at some point in time, and before that, God must have been by himself. Okay, we're going to stop here for today. Yes. I've heard many people questioning this fact that, before God created people and the universe, he was all by himself. No, it was not the case. Yes, so Srila Prabhupada will describe this tomorrow. He will say a little bit in this connection about the spiritual world where the Lord has unlimited number of servants. Eternal world. So thank you so much again for tuning in. The link to this book is in the description, and we shall see you tomorrow. Hare Krishna.